Hi, ladies. So we are in week 5. So we are talking this week. We're only in week 6. Let me double check here. Sorry. Um, all of a sudden, I just doubted. I'm wondering if we are now in week 6. We are in week 6. So we are just flying by. So we're actually we're approaching the halfway mark. So you guys are doing amazing. You're doing awesome. I appreciate that you guys have stayed engaged with watching the videos. If you haven't had a chance to go through some of the assignments, this stuff will be here. You always have access to it. And you even have access to me after the 12 weeks are over. So there's going to be opportunities to where I'd love to be able to continue that process with you, knowing that this stuff takes practice. And I'm here for you. I'm available for you. So I'm here during your weight loss journey. So with that said, we're halfway into our 12 weeks together. There's a lot of material that's been talked about, maybe some different ways we've been thinking through about weight loss in a lot of ways. And so actually today we are going to talk about identifying and mastering our food cravings. So we're going to talk about the hunger scale and the love language. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the 5 love languages book. We're actually going to talk about that. And interesting enough, you're thinking, how does that even apply to weight loss or even the food I'm eating? So it'll be fun to kind of spin this in here for you. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you, and so then I can share with you the slides. Okay, so we're talking about identifying and mastering food cravings. And again, we're talking about the hunger scale and identifying our love language, okay? So we're gonna start with the hunger scale first, okay? So we're gonna be talking about eating until satisfied but not full, okay? And we're gonna take a look at the hunger scale, and I'm gonna provide a document for you so you can kind of put into practice and kind of see what the hunger scale looks like. Okay, so again, we're going to be talking about eating until satisfied but not full. Okay, so when we kind of break this down, this is such a big, powerful tip. Okay, so we've already talked about. We've talked about putting high quality food into our body, and then we talked about how we combine our food together, and then we've actually talked about really even how stress and how we're eating, what we're eating and how we're eating, and when we combine those two together, the two of those things, when we put those things together, they're just as important. So by what you eat is not the only piece of the equation. How you eat is also another huge factor in that. So we're going to continue that conversation, and I'm going to give you some more tips around this. And so last week we talked about the 20-minute meal and incorporating setting up a timer, and setting up your meal. And to be honest with you, it's certainly there to gauge around eating for 20 minutes. But I use it as a tool to not put on another serving of any food for 20 minutes. So if I'm eating if it takes me 10 minutes to eat, then I'll just allow myself and wait another 10 minutes until that 20 minutes is up to see if I'm hungry any more than that. So it's amazing to see what your mind and your body, when your mind is able to catch up to your body. And so they say it takes 20 minutes to do that. So that was how we're eating and taking our time and slowing down, because when we actually slow down, we actually what we do is we allow ourselves to even taste the food, and we allow ourselves to enjoy what we're eating on top of that too. So we're going to continue on. I got some big tips for you today too. And so when we talk about eating until satisfied, not full, we're aiming for an 80% full. Okay, so we're not going to look at 100%. We're looking at tipping over, and we're just so over full and bloated and we can't move that it actually makes us feel like worse. So we're looking for it to feel energized instead of feeling weighed down. And what's important about this factor is that when we're until full, our body's optimal nutrition is we feel feel that pleasure. Okay, so we feel better, and we feel, if you ever you want to start paying attention to feeling like you have a good dish and you feel the pleasure with food, that's where we're kind of going with. Okay, so when we eat until we're full or too full, we're actually doing the opposite, right? So we end up feeling way down, heavy, uncomfortable, sleepy, and with less energy than we did before. So if we're eating until we're full or too full, it's having an effect on us that we don't want. Okay, and so why is it that we even do that? And so reasons we might overeat. We're going to break down a few things in here. And it could be deprivation. It could be that we're depriving ourselves of restricting our food, trying not to eat something. It could be that we're in denial and dieting. Then we become so hungry, so starved that we end up overeating. Have you ever been in that place where you've actually like, okay, I'm going to wait a little longer, or maybe you've just gone a long time without having a certain food, and then you feel like you need, then you have it a couple months later or a few weeks later, and you just end up gorging or binging on it, to be honest with you. So that's kind of some areas in there where we want to kind of know that every now and then, or having that stuff occasionally helps us to not feel like we're depriving ourselves. Okay, some other reasons we ignore our body is, again, we always, from the get-go, we want to listen to our body. So it could be that reasons we might overeat is we ignore our body, and we ignore what our body's telling us, and we become disconnected from listening to our hunger pains. Okay, so what happens when we do this? Our portions are not appropriate, and our metabolism gets confused. So when we talk about some reasons that, more reasons why we get overeat, was we're disconnected, okay? We're disconnected from the message our body's sending us. We don't slow down when we're eating, so we run out the door with food in our hand, or we eat at our desk while we're hungry or while we're working. And we hardly chew our food, ignoring the kind of the meal that we're eating, and shut down our digestive system. So we eat without paying attention to the quality of food, the quantity of the food, and whether we are hungry or not. Okay, so we may just be disconnected altogether to what our body's actually telling us, and actually feeling the sensation of food overall. So we disconnect from the message. Oops. All right, I actually had this twice. So skipping on. So when we talk about sensations versus feelings, we're going to break this down a little bit more in a couple slides after this. So what does being physically hungry feel like, right? So we got to ask ourselves what that means, and I'm going to address that here in a couple slides. What does being emotionally hungry feel like? The very quiet, whispering, tiny growl inside that talks to us is hunger. When we usually ignore it and go on working, playing, or running crazy until we're actually much hungrier. Okay, so what does physically hungry actually look like, and what does being emotionally hungry feel like, and what's the difference? So when we talk about emotional hungry, it could be that we're craving an emotion. Being physically hungry is that our body is actually physically hungry for food. So we're going to talk about the hunger scale, okay? And I'm going to break down the difference between like physical hunger and emotional, if we're looking for some kind of emotion, okay? So I do have a handout for you, but right now let's go ahead and take a look at emotional hunger, like feelings. So feelings are felt in our chest and our heart, okay? So it could be that we're needing self-love. It could be that we're heavy and we have this dull feeling. We're using food to stop anger. So it could be that we're just like, we just had an argument with our spouse. It could be our parent. It could be a friend. It could be, your boss. Some feeling that just built up some anger, and you're just, you go have some ice cream or a pint of ice cream or something like that. And so you're using food to comfort. It could be loneliness. It could be you're looking for love. It could be you're feeling something. And it's happened to all of us. Not one human has not done this in their life. We're just addressing there's difference between like feeling an emotion and feeling like a physical hunger. So So we eat when we're bored. We could be using feelings like when we're out with friends and we're celebrating of some sort, whatever. So hunger feelings, like that sensation, is when you're truly physically hunger, you feel that in your stomach and you feel that in your gut. You feel a lack of fuel and you need nourishment. Your body just needs that. Okay, and you'll kind of know, hey, it's been a few hours since I've eaten and I feel a little weaker. My body just needs some energy. Your stomach may make noises, your mouth gets all wet, your body feels weak. Okay, so those are all some feelings that you might feel the difference of. If you know, hey, I've just had a meal, and I know I'm at that point where I don't need any more and I keep eating. Maybe it might be one of those things where we may need to ask ourselves, what emotion am I trying to feel? What are some things that have happened in the last few days that maybe I might need to address? It could be a situation that's happened. It could be an argument. It could be some big life events that have happened. It could just be temptations, or whatever that is. And so we got to look and take a look at what maybe it's brought up in your life. What are maybe some things in the last few days that have come up, so that we would address those feelings that way. So if you're working through some of that on your own. So if we look at the hunger scale, this is, if you see on the bottom, we got a negative 100%. We really don't ever want to get to negative 100, and we really don't want to get to 100% or full stuffed. Okay, we really want to stay within that range where we're at negative 60 and 80%. Okay, so satisfied. All right, so we really kind of want to stay away from the weak, starving stage and things like that. And so you actually find yourself, we'll probably need any more food than we actually think, and we don't again allow ourselves that 20. Like again, when we're starving, what happens is we start to feed our bodies, and it takes that 20 minutes for our body and our mind to catch up. And when we're starving, we just don't ever get caught up in that 20 minutes. So which honestly makes sense. So so all that to say, so we look at the bottom, when we're looking at that negative 60, like the lightheaded, growling, actually I never want you lightheaded, but we're looking at that negative 60% of looking at, when you want the range you want to be in. So start to test this out, start to ask yourself where you might be in some of your meals and stuff. Maybe ask yourself how, as you would like a best friend, like not only what is it that you want to eat, but how are you feeling in this moment? Do I feel like I'm at 60? Do you feel like I'm at 80%? Or when you're going to have a meal, those type of things, start asking yourself those questions. And I'll leave the hunger scale document for you so you can kind of take a look at that for you. So so we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the emotional side of hunger and our relationship to appetite. Okay, so sometimes as women we will use food, especially sweets, as a substitute for love. And so that's what we're going to address, the love language, okay? So have you heard of Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages book? Okay, and if you haven't, it's a quick, easy read. It's not a very hard book to read, but he actually addresses 5 love languages. And he says that we all have a primary love language. Maybe we have actually a couple of them, a couple primary. One primary one, and maybe one that is really high up there with you, okay? And so he addresses the 5, and let me see if I can list them off for you. So physical touch as a primary love language, giving gifts or receiving gifts as a love language, words of affirmation. I'm sorry, I may not get them all, and I thought I would. So they're going to be right here. Here we go, and I'll go back up. So we got physical touch, words of affirmation, and my slide is messed up, so I'm sorry. Acts of service, quality time, and receiving gifts. So I'm actually a words of affirmation and quality time. I love hiking, and I love hiking for the quality time that I get, whoever I'm with, and the memories that I'm creating. I love creating memories, and that just fills my soul up, okay? And then I love words of affirmation. I love encouragement. I love giving that, and I love being able to receive that. So so we'll come back through to the 5 love languages and just ignore my double numbers if you can. So when we discover our love language, we find our tank being filled with love instead of kind of like a food or Ben and Jerry's ice cream. So to understand how we really want to be loved, one of the best tools we found is something that's the Five Love Languages book by Gary Chapman. So the full title of his book is called The Five Love Languages: How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate. And it's a very well-known book, so I'll leave that for you guys. I'd love for you to be able to read that. And I'll give you a quiz to take to identify your love language if you don't already know. So whether you're married, with a partner, single, understanding our love language actually goes a very long way. And it helps us to understand ourselves better too. So if you're in a place where you're, hey, you feel like, hey, I'm not getting maybe some of my needs met, by understanding. And here's the thing is, to be honest with you, there's going to be a place where we need them all. We need all 5 love languages that you just may, there's actually 1 or 2 that actually speak more to you. So there might be a time you're like, hey, I'm just receiving that gift didn't mean a lot to me, but overall in your life, maybe for me, having that quality time, creating memories, getting words of affirmation will always be able to speak to me. So, being able to identify that really will go a long way, and it actually helps us to address our own needs. Okay, so the 5 love languages, here's a summary. In the 5 love languages book, Dr. Chapman explains how important it is for couples to understand how each other and themselves both give and receive love. So it is possible for couples to truly love each other, but truly feel unloved because they don't think the same about giving and receiving love. Everybody generally has their own primary love language for receiving and giving, okay, love. So if one partner does not meet the primary love language of the other partner, she might or he might not sense his true feelings and start to be might be unsatisfied with their relationship. Okay, understanding your loved one's love languages and acting accordingly will actually help fill your love tank. And so again, this happens. This is not just if you're in a relationship or not. This is true for someone that happens to not be in a relationship as well. So, so the love tank analogy is a great metaphor for describing how loved someone feels. Like a gas tank in a car, our lives run best when our love tank is filled and constantly being topped off. The alternative is running on fumes and burning out. Meeting people's primary love language consistently will fill up their tank and help them feel loved like they need. So, but if a spouse or partner fails to meet their primary love language, it might leave their tank empty, which leads to the feelings of being unloved and an issue in relationships. Okay, so to go back at the 5 love languages, and think through. If you already know what yours is, we're going to talk through that a little bit this week. I'd love to know what your primary love language is, especially after taking the quiz if you don't know yours already. So, so as a recap, you discovered why embracing your appetite is as good and right as the key to freedom in your relationship with food and your body in your life. You discovered how to really get the love you want instead of settling for ice cream by using the 5 love languages. Okay, so when we take a look at again, identifying what it is that we may need to fill our tank as far as love tank or whatever our needs are, we actually find ourselves not going to food to fill those things up in our life. So that's why we talked about the love language today. So we also talked and dressed about our hunger scale and looking at where we want to be on that scale overall. And so and addressed when we look at feelings and looking at when we look at emotional hunger and physical hunger. So I will go ahead and leave those documents for you. Love to hear from you on what you think. And you guys are doing awesome. I'm so proud of you. And I will stop to share this with you real quick. And I hope you have a great week. And I will see you guys in the Facebook group.